Hi. So today we're going to be continuing our series on the book of Deuteronomy. Today we're going to be focusing on Deuteronomy chapter 3 and verse 1 to 29, verse 29. So next we turn, verse 1. From next we turn and we went along the route towards Bashan. Og, king of Bashan, came out with his whole army to fight us. He wanted to fight us at the town called Edrei. But the Lord said to him, "Do not be afraid of him. I will give him his whole army and his country to you. Fight against him in the same way as you fought against Sihon, king of the Amorites. Sihon ruled in Heshbon. So the Lord our God handed over to us Og, the king of Bashan, all his army. We killed all of them. We left none of them alive. At the same time, we captured all his towns. We captured all of his 60 towns. We took the whole region called Argob, and it was Og's kingdom and Bashan. All those towns had high walls with gates and bars to protect them. There were also many villages without walls. We destroyed them completely as we had done with Shihon, king of Hashbon. We destroyed all the towns. We killed the men and the women and the children. But we took for ourselves all the animals, the people's possessions from the towns. So at that time we captured the territory on the east of the river Jordan. We took it from those two Amorite kings. That territory was from the river Arnon to Mount Hermon. The people from the country called Sidon, called Mount Hermon, Sirion, the the Amorites called it Sinir, Sinar, and we captured all the towns of the plain. We captured the regions called Gilead, and Bashan, up to Selka and Edrei. Those were the towns and the Og's country, kingdom, and Bashan. Og, king of Bashan, was the last of the Rephaites. His bed was iron. It was more than 13 foot long and 6 foot wide, 4 metrics long, and 2 metrics wide. It is still in Rabbah, the town where the Ammonites lived. So Bashan was a region that grew good crops, and it had good land for cattle, and it had large forests. It had high hills also. It was to the north and northeast of the region called Galilee. There are more than 60 towns, from high walls and gates to protect them. They called the region Argob. And the Israelites destroyed the towns and all the people who lived in there. They did not kill the animals. They did not destroy the things that they had taken from the towns. Some students think that the word for bed means the box for his dead body, because Og was a king. The bed with a box for his body was very large. People may have made a box from a rock that contained iron rather than all of iron. God told the Israelites to destroy some people and some things. Sometimes things can cause people to sin. Jesus told people to free themselves from anything like that. And so you can see the reference from Matthew 5, verse 27 through 30. And he does not mean that people should damage their bodies, but they must do everything to avoid sin or to prevent sin. So verse 12, I divided the country that we captured at that time. I gave to the tribes of Reuben and Gad the territory to the north of Arir, near the river Arnon. That included half of the hills and the region called Gilead, together with its towns. I gave the rest of Gilead and all of Bashan to have the tribe of Manasseh, and there was where Og ruled. People used to call the whole region of Argob in Bashan, the land that belongs to the Rephaites. Jair, a descendant of Manasseh, took the whole region called Argob. That region went to the border of Geshur and Makath. He named the region after himself. Today, people still call Bashan the villages that belong to Jair. I gave Gilead to Machir, and I gave the territory from Gilead to river Arnon to the tribes of Reuben and Gad. Their boundary was the middle of the river, and their boundary was the river Jabbok. That was the boundary with the Ammonites. Their western border was the river Jordan in the Arabah valley. That was all the land from Galilee to the Dead Sea. It is below the slopes of Mount Pisgah. So Moses describes how he divided the land to the east of the river Jordan, and he gave some land to the tribes of Reuben and Gad, and he gave the rest of the land, half the land, to half the tribe called Manasseh. Those tribes had especially asked for that land, so Moses let them live there. They still had to help the rest of the tribes to possess their parts of the land. They could not rest until they had that done. So verse 18, I gave to you this command at that time. The Lord your God has given to you this country to possess it. But all your brave fighters with their military arms must go ahead of other Israelites. They are your relatives. However, your wives, your children, and your animals can stay. I know that you have many animals. They can stay in the towns that I have given to you. That will be until the Lord allows your relatives, the other Israelites, to live in peace like you. Then they too will possess the country that the Lord your God is giving to them. Their country is across the river Jordan from your country. Then you can return to the country that I have given to you as your possession. Then I gave this command to you. You have seen all that the Lord your God did to those two kings. The Lord will do the same to all the kingdom where you will go. Do not be afraid of the people there. The Lord your God will fight for you. The Israelites who wanted to live on the east of the river Jordan died to help the other Israelites. The nation had to act as a group with God as their leader. Their wives, their families, their cattle would remain in the country. Perhaps the men who were too young or too old to fight would look after them. The men who crossed the river Jordan could return to their own country. However, they had to help with the other Israelites first. Moses ordered Joshua to lead the battle. Moses told him not to be afraid. Moses reminded Joshua about what God had done to the two kings, Sihon and Og. God would help Joshua to defeat other kings in the same way. We should remember how God has helped us in the past. How God has helped us in our past mistakes, and our past failures, and our past issues and circumstances and situations. And that will help us to trust Him in the future. Trust even in the present, or in the moment. He will be able to help us know how to trust Him, not just for the future, but in the present, right now, in this moment. And so, verse 23. And then I prayed to the Lord very strongly, Lord, our Lord, I am your servant. You have begun to show me the great and powerful things that you can do. No false gods in the sky or on the earth can do the great things that you do. Let me cross over the river Jordan and see the good country. I want to see the pleasant hills in Lebanon. But because of you, the Lord was very angry with me. He would not listen to me. Instead, he said, that is enough. Do not speak to me about this again. Go up to the top of Mount Pisgah. Look to the north, south, and east and west. You can look at the country, but you will not go across the river Jordan. But appoint Joshua for his work. Encourage him, give him strength, and he will lead the Israelites across, and they will possess the country that you will see. So we remained in the valley near Beth Peor. Moses' prayer shows that he knew God well. Moses believed that there was only one God. He asked God very strongly to let him lead the Israelites into the country. God did not allow him to do that. God punished Moses because the Israelites' action caused him to do wrong things. In Numbers chapter 20, we read how Moses brought water out of the rock. He did not speak to the rock. He hit the rock. He did not obey the God. God told Moses that he would be able to see the country. However, like Abraham, he had to trust that God would keep his promises. Joshua led the Israelites to capture the country. God told Moses that he should encourage Joshua to do that. Encourage to do that. God did not always say yes to our prayers. In the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus asked to take away his trouble, but he also prayed to do what God wanted. You can see the reference in Mark 14:36, Mark 14, verse 36. We need to pray in the same way, because God may not give to you or to us what we desire, but he can make us content without it. So that gives a result that is as good or better. What we see in chapter 3 of Deuteronomy, that Moses, even when he was trying to be faithful, even when he understood the promises of God and all that, God encouraged and God motivated him, inspired him, and to saying, instead of you doing what I've commanded, what I've motivated, what I've inspired for you to do for the Israelites, let Joshua do it instead of you. Because when we understand the story of Moses, he was the one that hit the rock. He was the one that angered God. And so his ability of leading the Israelites wasn't that, I'm not gonna say enough. It wasn't sufficient for God to be like, for Yahweh to be like, oh, you're good enough to lead the Israelites. You're good enough to do X and Y and Z with the Israelites. No, because when Moses was trying to do that, Joshua was already there to replace him. Joshua and Caleb was already there to replace him. So you gotta understand, when Joshua and Caleb was already there to replace him because of the disobedience, because I'm so to speak and all that, and he had anger and he disobeyed what God told him or God inspired and motivated and desired for him to do. That when Joshua came on the scene, Joshua did it better. Joshua did it greater. He wasn't even supposed to lead the Israelites, because God appointed Moses to be the leader of the Israelites. But then when because of the Israelites' actions, the Israelites' behaviors, Moses acted the same way, behaved and acted the same way that the Israelites did. Joshua replaced Moses to become a leader that is not just appointed by God, but appointed for that moment, for that time. Because of Moses' behavior, because of Moses' actions, because of Moses' disobedience, because of Moses of how he acted, because it's not that he wasn't good enough to be a leader. It was just his disobedience. It was just he was lacking, or he was weak. So he got replaced by Joshua, being not just a better leader, but a leader who can be able to lead the Israelites and what God promised them to lead and go into it and lead into with success. Succession doesn't come from your weakness. Succession doesn't come from your weakness. Succession doesn't come from you saying, oh, I'm weak, I can't do this, I can't do that. No, it comes through your faith and trusting God that he will be able to work on your behalf, that whatever you're weak in, he can make you strong in. Whatever you're not tough in, whatever you're not confident in, he can give you the confidence, he can give you the strength, he can give you the courage to do that, because he did that for Joshua. Because instead of Moses going to lead in the Israelites, Joshua led, and Moses gave him the courage. Moses uplifted him. Moses gave him the courage. Moses uplifted him. Moses said, you can do this. God has faith in you. He encouraged Joshua. Moses encouraged Joshua. Moses encouraged, uplifted, gave strength to Joshua to be able to lead the Israelites, because Moses was not, it wasn't that Moses didn't have the ability to do that. He did. It was just because God had a better appointed leader or person to do the work. He got that relaxation, he got that rest that Moses can get, because Moses in his time seeked after God, seeked after Yahweh with praying in the burning bush. The glory of the Lord, the glory of the Lord, like shining upon the face, upon the body, upon Moses himself, and different things that he had done to be committed unto the Lord. But then at that last moment of not being able to do it because of his disobedience, because of his doubts, because of his worries, because of his concerns, that Joshua took the place of him, because even if he was to doubt, even if he was to worry, even if he wasn't to be confident, he did it anyways because he trusted on what God could do. In our lives, we need to trust God on what He can do, because even though we're not confident, or even though we worry and we doubt, and we say either ors and buts on what we can second guess, God still has a way for us. God still is faithful. God still keeps His promise, and He never lacks His promises. He never lacks His promises. His promises are not yea or nay. It's not either nor but it's always yea. Because if we do what the Lord tells us to do, what Yahweh tells us to do, what God tells us to do, He will guide and lead us and provide us a way where we have never experienced before, or heard of before, or thought of before, or have a hold of before, that He will provide for us, that He will guide and lead for us. That it's not going to be later, but it's going to be soon. But it's going to be in the now. But it's going to be in the moment. But it's going to be in the present. That God will do what we can not see or hear or never experience before. That God will greater do for us. Because the hand of God is real. Because the hand of God can take us greater than what we can expect, than what we can feel, than what we can encounter, than what we can taste, than what we can see, than what we can go through. Because the hand of God is greater, to be able to be our sufficient God, of being our rock, the firm foundation of our life. Just like how Joshua got appointed, just like how Joshua led the Israelites. We need to be able to trust God, because if that motivator, that inspiration wasn't coming from Moses to be able to making God trust Joshua with God being able to encourage him, make sure that he has strength to be able to do this and do that. If Moses didn't have the ability, or they didn't have the strength to be able to do that for Joshua, would Joshua be able to lead? Would Joshua be able to lead the Israelites into where they were supposed to go to? Because neither ors and buts and yeas and nays were not said or heard from the mouth of Joshua. And so he looked, he acted, and he responded. And mighty things happened, mighty things occurred, mighty things were for Joshua. Not against Joshua, but for Joshua. Because he was faithful to the end. If he wasn't faithful in trusting God on what He can do, he would be like Moses, where he doubted, where he worried, where he had concern, where he wasn't confident enough to be like yes to it, or like a strong yes, or a strong, there wouldn't be a response like that. And so Joshua had that response of a strong yes, of a commitment that was strong, a commitment that was like encouraged by God, that whatever Moses couldn't do, Joshua did it, because he had that inspiration, that motivation, that not just encouraged him, but that through God, Moses had the ability to encourage him also, even when his time passed, even when his moment, his hour has passed to lead. He still became that inspiration. He still became that motivator, because he knew greater things were in store for Joshua, and he can see greater opportunities, greater future for Joshua like never before.